There is one unwritten rule in professional basketball that almost every player understands. You can argue a call. You can shake your head. You can even accept a technical foul. But you never call out a referee by name. Because once you cross that line, there's no taking it back. Well, Caitlin Clark just crossed it. And she didn't whisper it behind closed doors. She said it live, in front of cameras, with millions of fans watching. After receiving what she described as a technical foul for simply clapping, Clark sat down at the post-game press conference and did something that instantly shook the entire WNBA. She named the official directly, questioned the decision, and openly challenged the league to explain why she was punished while similar actions appeared to go uncalled. For many fans, this wasn't just frustration. It was a breaking point. Because this isn't the first time questions have been raised about how Clark is being officiated. But this may be the first time she's decided she isn't staying quiet anymore. Even more surprising, Clark acknowledged that she's approaching the league's technical foul limit and suggested that if she's going to be suspended over a clap, then the league should go ahead and do it. That statement immediately ignited debate across sports media and social platforms. So what really happened? Why did this single technical foul become one of the biggest WNBA stories of the season? And has Caitlin Clark just forced the league into a situation where every decision they make from this point forward will be scrutinized? Stay with us until the end, because this story isn't just about one whistle. It's about officiating, accountability, the future of the WNBA, and why one emotional post-game interview may have changed the conversation around the league forever. Every superstar has a breaking point. For some players, it happens quietly inside the locker room. For others, it happens during a heated timeout. But for Caitlin Clark, it happened in front of the entire basketball world. Not with a screaming match. Not with a dramatic ejection. Not with an emotional outburst. It happened with something far simpler. A clap. Just a few seconds. A quick reaction after a play. And moments later, the whistle blew. Technical foul. At first, many fans watching the game were confused. Some thought they had missed something. Maybe Clark had said something to an official. Maybe there had been an argument that television cameras didn't catch. Maybe there was another incident away from the ball. But according to Clark's own explanation after the game, the reason she was given for the technical foul was straightforward. She said the referee told her it was for clapping in a way that was considered instigating. That explanation immediately became the center of the controversy. Because basketball is an emotional sport. Always has been. Players celebrate. Players react. Players show frustration. Players clap. Players point. Players talk. It's part of competition. That's why countless fans immediately began asking the same question. Was this really enough to deserve a technical foul? Or was something bigger happening? To understand why this moment exploded online, you first have to understand who Caitlin Clark has become. She's no longer just another rookie. She's the face of a new era. Every arena she visits sells more tickets. Television ratings climb. Merchandise disappears from shelves. Young fans line up hours before tip-off, hoping to catch a glimpse of her warm-up routine. In many ways, Clark has become the biggest attraction in women's basketball. That level of attention changes everything. Every shot she takes is analyzed. Every turnover becomes a headline. Every foul becomes a debate. Every interaction with officials gets replayed from multiple angles. That's exactly what happened here. Within minutes of the technical foul, clips of the play flooded social media. Fans slowed the video down, frame by frame, trying to determine exactly what happened. Some believed the call was justified. Others believed it was excessive. And before long, the conversation had spread far beyond Indiana Fever fans. National sports shows were discussing it. Former players weighed in. Commentators debated whether officials were being too strict. The discussion was no longer about one whistle. It had become a conversation about consistency. Because according to the transcript, Clark herself wasn't arguing that officials should ignore every emotional reaction. Instead, she questioned why similar situations didn't always receive the same response. She openly asked why she received a technical while comparable actions from opponents appeared to go unpunished. That distinction matters a lot, because athletes can usually accept strict officiating. What frustrates competitors is inconsistency. If everyone is held to the same standard, most players adjust. But when the standard appears different depending on the player or the moment, questions begin. And that's exactly what happened after the final buzzer. Instead of avoiding the topic, Clark addressed it head-on. She walked into the press conference, smiled briefly, and immediately made it clear she didn't understand the decision. Then came the moment nobody expected. She referred to the referee by name while explaining what she had been told about the technical foul. She said she asked the official why the technical had been issued and repeated the explanation she received. 4 veteran reporters covering professional sports, that instantly stood out. Players rarely identify officials individually in post-game press conferences. Most simply say the referee or the officials. Clark chose a different approach. Whether intentional or emotional, it immediately changed the tone of the conversation. Now fans weren't simply discussing a technical foul. They were discussing accountability. According to the transcript, Clark also pointed out that the league has the ability to review technical fouls after games and suggested that this particular one deserved another look. That comment only intensified public interest. Because now attention shifted from the game itself to what might happen next. Would the league review it? Would the technical remain? Would officials explain the decision publicly? Or would everyone simply move on? Nobody knew. But one thing was certain. The story wasn't going away. Adding even more drama was Clark's acknowledgement that she was nearing the technical foul threshold that could eventually lead to an automatic suspension under league rules. She joked that if technical fouls are going to be issued for clapping, fans might as well circle the future suspension game on their calendars. That quote spread everywhere. Sports shows replayed it. Fans shared it. Analysts debated what it meant. Some viewed it as sarcasm. Others saw it as a direct challenge. Either way, people were paying attention. And perhaps that's what made this moment different from every previous controversy involving Clark. This wasn't simply frustration. It was confidence. Confidence that the public would watch the replay for themselves. Confidence that people would form their own opinions. Confidence that the conversation wasn't ending with one post-game interview. Instead, it was only beginning. Because while Caitlin Clark had spoken her mind, an even bigger question was about to emerge. Where was the Indiana Fever coaching staff? Why was Clark the one carrying the entire conversation? And why were so many fans suddenly asking whether the team's biggest star was fighting this battle alone? For a few hours after the game, the conversation was entirely about Caitlin Clark. The technical foul. The clapping. The referee. The post-game press conference. But then something unexpected happened. Fans stopped talking about Clark and started talking about her coach. Because as clips from both press conferences spread across social media, many viewers noticed what they believed was a striking contrast. On one side sat Caitlin Clark. Direct, passionate, completely willing to explain why she thought the technical foul was unfair. On the other side was Indiana Fever head coach Stephanie White. More measured, more cautious, more diplomatic. And almost immediately, debate erupted online. Many fans began asking the same question. Shouldn't the head coach be the one taking pressure off her superstar? Throughout basketball history, coaches have often accepted fines, criticized officiating, or publicly defended players after controversial games. Whether people agreed with those decisions or not, the philosophy was usually simple. Protect your locker room. Protect your players. Take the criticism yourself. That's why this situation felt different to many observers. According to the transcript, some commentators argued that Clark appeared to be carrying the public conversation herself, while many expected stronger public support from the bench. That criticism spread quickly. Sports podcasts picked it up. YouTube channels began debating it. Fans flooded comment sections asking why Clark was answering questions that they believed should also have been addressed by the coaching staff. Of course, not everyone agreed. Others defended Stephanie White's approach. They argued that coaches have to think long-term. Every public statement matters. Every criticism of officiating is reviewed by the league. Every emotional response can create unnecessary distractions for the team. From that perspective, staying calm wasn't weakness. It was leadership. And honestly, both arguments had supporters. Because coaching isn't just about drawing up plays. It's also about managing relationships. Relationships with players. Relationships with officials. Relationships with the league. One emotional press conference can affect all three. Still, the optics became impossible to ignore. Clark appeared emotional but confident. White appeared careful and restrained. That difference created a narrative. And once a narrative starts spreading online, it's incredibly difficult to stop. According to the transcript, the contrast between Clark's willingness to speak directly about the officiating and White's more cautious comments became a major talking point among fans and commentators. Some even compared the situation to legendary NBA coaches who famously defended their stars. People brought up examples of coaches accepting league fines after criticizing officiating because they believed it strengthened trust inside the locker room. Whether those comparisons were fair is another debate entirely. The WNBA is different. Every organization has its own culture. Every coach has a different leadership style. But perception often matters just as much as reality. And right now, the perception was that Caitlin Clark was standing alone at the microphone. That's a powerful image. Especially when you're already the most talked about player in the league. Think about the pressure Clark is already under. Every arena sells out when she arrives. National television follows nearly every game. Every hard foul becomes viral. Every technical foul becomes front-page sports news. That's an enormous amount of attention for any player. Now imagine adding controversy over officiating to that list. The pressure multiplies fast. That's why many fans believed this wasn't simply about one technical foul anymore. It had become a conversation about leadership. Who speaks for the team? Who protects the team's biggest star? Who challenges decisions when players believe something isn't right? Those questions don't have easy answers. But they became impossible to ignore. According to the transcript, some commentators specifically questioned whether the coaching staff should have taken a stronger public position regarding the physical play and officiating Clark had experienced. Then another layer was added to the story. Because while critics argued Clark was fighting alone at the podium, the game itself told a slightly different story. Inside the locker room, something appeared to be changing. For weeks, one criticism had followed the Indiana Fever. People claimed Clark wasn't being protected physically during games. That teammates weren't stepping in. That opponents were becoming increasingly aggressive. But during this matchup, fans noticed something different. Veteran forward Myisha Hines-Allen became part of the conversation after stepping in during tense moments on the court, and Clark later expressed appreciation for having a teammate willing to support her during physical play. That moment mattered. Because basketball teams are built on trust. Players need to know someone has their back. Especially during emotional games. Especially when tensions rise. Clark's comments suggested she appreciated that support. And suddenly the narrative began shifting. Maybe she wasn't alone after all. Maybe the support simply looked different. Maybe teammates were speaking through actions instead of microphones. That realization created another fascinating debate. Was public support more important? Or was on-court support what really mattered? Fans were divided. Some wanted louder voices. Others believed actions always speak louder than words. But before anyone could settle that argument, the story took another dramatic turn. Because looming over everything, the technical foul remained. And with every technical, Clark moved one step closer to a possible automatic suspension. That's when the conversation stopped being just about basketball. It became about business. Millions of dollars. Television contracts. Sell-out arenas. And one superstar whose absence could change everything. Sometimes one technical foul is just one technical foul. But sometimes, one whistle creates a problem worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And according to many observers, that's exactly where the WNBA suddenly found itself. Because this story was no longer just about Caitlin Clark. It was no longer just about one referee. It wasn't even just about officiating anymore. It had become a business story. A very expensive business story. Think about where the WNBA is today. The league is experiencing unprecedented growth. Attendance is climbing. Television ratings continue reaching new audiences. Corporate sponsors are investing more heavily. National broadcasts are receiving greater attention than ever before. And whether people love her or criticize her, one fact is difficult to ignore. Caitlin Clark has become one of the league's biggest attractions. Everywhere the Indiana Fever travel, tickets disappear. Arenas fill. Television audiences increase. Merchandise sells. The Caitlin Clark effect has become one of the biggest talking points in professional basketball. That's why this controversy suddenly became much bigger than a technical foul. Because according to the transcript, Clark openly acknowledged the possibility of a future suspension if technical fouls continue to accumulate, and sarcastically suggested that fans might as well mark their calendars if clapping is going to result in technicals. That quote spread like wildfire. Within hours, sports television picked it up. Radio hosts debated it. Former athletes reacted. Social media exploded. Why? Because everyone immediately realized what was at stake. If Clark was suspended, the impact wouldn't stop with one missed game. It would affect television schedules, arena attendance, national storylines, fan engagement. The conversation quickly shifted from basketball to economics. Because modern professional sports aren't just competitions. They are entertainment businesses. Every nationally televised game represents advertising revenue, corporate partnerships, network investments, digital engagement, millions of dollars. According to the transcript, the league has major broadcast relationships with companies including NBC, Peacock, and Amazon Prime, and commentators questioned how a suspension of one of the league's biggest attractions might affect those high-profile broadcasts. That idea immediately sparked debate. Imagine being a television executive. You've spent months promoting an Indiana Fever game. Commercials have already aired. Sponsors have purchased advertising. Fans are planning to tune in. Then, just before tip-off, the league announces that its biggest draw won't be playing. Not because of an injury. Not because of illness. But because of an accumulation of technical fouls that includes one issued after a clap. Whether people agree with that characterization or not, you can immediately understand why the debate became so intense. Because perception matters. Especially in sports. According to many fans online, this wasn't simply about enforcing rules. It was about protecting the product. And that's where the WNBA suddenly found itself facing what many commentators described as a difficult balancing act. On one side, rules exist for a reason. Officials need authority. Consistency matters. Every player should be held accountable under the same rulebook. On the other side, the league is experiencing historic momentum. New fans are discovering the WNBA every week. Media attention has never been greater. Business opportunities continue expanding. No league wants its biggest headlines to be about officiating instead of basketball. That's why Clark's press conference resonated so strongly. According to the transcript, she challenged the explanation she received for the technical foul and invited the league to review the play, suggesting that if officials believed the call was correct, they should explain why similar situations appeared to be treated differently. That wasn't simply frustration. It was a public challenge. A challenge for transparency. A challenge for consistency. A challenge for accountability. Whether people agreed with Clark or not, the discussion had changed. The focus was no longer on her reaction. The focus was on the officiating itself. And that may have been the biggest turning point of all. Because once fans begin examining officiating frame by frame, every future whistle becomes magnified. Every technical foul becomes controversial. Every decision becomes a national discussion. That's an incredibly difficult environment for referees. It's also a difficult environment for the league office. Because according to the transcript, if the technical remains, Clark edges closer to the league's automatic suspension threshold. But if the league were to overturn the technical, critics could argue that officials made a mistake and that Clark received special treatment because of her star power. That's the dilemma. Either decision creates criticism. Leave the technical in place. People question whether the league is punishing emotion. Remove the technical. People question whether the league applies different standards to its biggest star. Neither outcome satisfies everyone. And that's exactly why this story became so fascinating. For perhaps the first time this season, the WNBA itself appeared to become the center of the conversation. Not the players. Not the game. The league. Its rules. Its officials. Its leadership. Its future. And while executives were likely considering those broader questions, Clark had already shifted public attention somewhere else entirely. She had changed the conversation from, did she deserve the technical? To, how should the league handle this from here? That's a very different debate. Because now, every future game involving Caitlin Clark carries additional pressure. Every whistle will be watched. Every technical reviewed. Every interaction analyzed. The microscope has become even bigger. And perhaps that's exactly why this story isn't ending anytime soon. Because the biggest question still hasn't been answered. How will the WNBA respond? Will officials continue calling games exactly the same way? Will the league review controversial technical fouls more closely? Or will this moment become the beginning of a much larger conversation about consistency, officiating, and the future direction of women's professional basketball? Those answers could shape the rest of the season. And they may determine whether this was simply another post-game controversy, or the moment everything changed. There comes a moment in every sports controversy when the focus shifts. At first, everyone talks about the player. Then, everyone starts talking about the league. That is exactly what happened here. Because after Caitlin Clark's post-game comments spread across every major sports platform, the conversation was no longer centered on one technical foul. It became a debate about the WNBA itself. How should the league respond? Should officials stand by the call? Should the technical be reviewed? Should Clark face discipline if she continues speaking this openly? Or has the conversation become too big to ignore? According to the transcript, Clark didn't simply disagree with the technical foul. She publicly questioned the reasoning behind it and suggested the league review the play itself, saying she wanted to understand why she received a technical while similar situations appeared to be handled differently. That statement completely changed the narrative. Because now, millions of fans weren't just watching Caitlin Clark. They were watching every referee, every whistle, every technical foul, every interaction. And that's a level of scrutiny professional officials rarely experience. Think about the pressure. The next time Clark steps on the floor, every television camera will be watching. Every sports analyst will be paying attention. Every fan inside the arena will react to every whistle. Not because it's another regular season game. Because everyone wants to see what happens next. Will officials call the game differently? Will Clark respond differently? Will another technical foul become another national headline? The pressure isn't just on Clark anymore. It's on the league. And according to many observers, that's exactly what makes this moment so unique. For years, conversations about officiating usually disappeared within 24 hours. A controversial call would happen. People would complain. Then everyone would move on. This feels different. Because this involves the league's biggest attraction. The player who has helped bring unprecedented attention to the WNBA. That's why every future decision carries extra weight. According to the transcript, Clark acknowledged that she's going to continue playing with emotion and passion, making it clear she isn't planning to fundamentally change the way she competes. That comment is significant. Because it suggests this wasn't an apology. It wasn't a retreat. It was a statement. A statement that she's going to remain herself. Whether people like it or not. That's the mindset many great competitors have shared throughout sports history. They compete with emotion. They compete with intensity. They compete with passion. Sometimes that passion creates unforgettable moments. Sometimes it creates controversy. But it almost always creates attention. And attention is exactly what the WNBA has right now. The league finds itself balancing two priorities. On one hand, protect the integrity of officiating. On the other, continue building the momentum that has brought millions of new viewers to women's basketball. Neither goal is simple. Neither goal is easy. And every decision from this point forward will be analyzed from both perspectives. That's why so many commentators believe this controversy extends far beyond one game. It's about precedent. If Clark receives another questionable technical, people will remember this press conference. If she doesn't, people will remember this press conference. Either way, this interview has become part of the season's story. According to the transcript, Clark's comments shifted public attention toward officiating itself, with many fans now waiting to see how future games are called. Then there's another layer that cannot be ignored. Young athletes. Millions of them. Girls across America watching every Fever game. Watching Clark compete. Watching how she responds under pressure. watching how the league responds in return. Those moments matter. Not because they determine one season. Because they influence how the next generation views the sport. Passion, emotion, competition, respect, accountability. Those values are constantly being communicated, not only through players, but through how the game is officiated. That's why this discussion has become so much bigger than basketball. It's become a conversation about the identity of the league itself. What kind of basketball does the WNBA want to showcase? A league full of emotion and intensity? A league with tighter emotional boundaries? Or something in between? Those aren't easy questions. But they are questions fans are now asking. And perhaps that's the most important consequence of Clarke's press conference. She didn't just criticize one call. She started a league-wide conversation. A conversation that isn't likely to disappear anytime soon. Because every Indiana Fever game from now on carries extra anticipation. Every whistle becomes news. Every technical becomes debate. Every emotional reaction becomes a viral clip. The microscope has never been larger. And while everyone waits to see how the officials respond, one thing is already certain. Caitlin Clarke isn't backing down. Which brings us to the biggest question of all. Has this controversy permanently changed the relationship between Caitlin Clarke and WNBA officiating? Or is this simply another chapter in a season that keeps producing unforgettable headlines? Because the answer may define not only Clarke's rookie campaign, but the future image of the WNBA itself. Sometimes a season is remembered because of a championship. Sometimes it's remembered because of a game-winning shot. And sometimes it's remembered because one player decided she wasn't going to stay silent anymore. Whether people agree with Caitlin Clarke or not. Whether they believe the technical foul was justified or not. One thing is undeniable. This moment changed the conversation. It forced fans to stop talking only about highlights and start talking about officiating. It forced analysts to ask difficult questions about consistency. And it forced the WNBA into one of the most closely watched situations of the entire season. Because this isn't simply about one whistle anymore. It's about trust. Trust between players and officials. Trust between fans and the league. Trust that every game is being officiated by the same standard. According to the transcript, Clarke repeatedly emphasized that she wanted to understand why she received a technical foul for clapping while she believed similar situations were handled differently during the game. That question resonated with millions of viewers. Not because everyone agreed with her, but because sports fans have always cared about consistency. Whether it's the NBA, the NFL, Major League Baseball, or the WNBA, fans want to believe that every player competes under the same rules. The moment people begin questioning that, the discussion becomes much bigger than one athlete. That's exactly where this story now stands. The next Indiana Fever game won't just be another regular season matchup. It will be watched through a completely different lens. Every whistle involving Clarke will be analyzed. Every conversation with an official will be replayed. Every emotional reaction will trend across social media. That's the reality now. And according to the transcript, Clarke made it clear she isn't planning to stop competing with emotion or passion simply because she's approaching the league's technical foul limit. That statement tells us something important. She isn't asking to become bigger than the game. She's saying she's going to continue playing the same way she always has. Aggressive, competitive, emotional, confident. Whether fans support that approach or criticize it, it's become part of who she is as a player. At the same time, the WNBA faces its own challenge. The league is experiencing historic growth. Attendance continues climbing. Television audiences continue expanding. Corporate partners continue investing. Millions of new fans are discovering women's basketball. That's exciting. But growth also creates pressure. Every decision receives more attention. Every controversy becomes national news. Every officiating debate becomes a headline. According to the transcript, many observers now believe the spotlight has shifted toward the league's officiating and how future games involving Clark will be managed. That's a difficult position for everyone involved. Officials want to call games consistently. Players want fairness. Coaches want to protect their teams. Fans want transparency. And the league wants the focus to remain on basketball. Balancing all of those priorities isn't easy. That's why this story may become one of the defining moments of the season. Not because of one technical foul. Not because of one press conference. But because it sparked a larger discussion. A discussion about emotion, competition, consistency, leadership, and the future of the WNBA. Perhaps years from now, people won't remember the exact score of this game. They may not remember every possession. But they will remember the moment Caitlin Clark sat in front of reporters and openly challenged a decision she believed was unfair. Whether history ultimately proves her right or wrong, that moment has already become part of the league's story. Because sometimes one interview can influence an entire season. Sometimes one player can start a conversation nobody expected. And sometimes, one technical foul can become far more important than anyone imagined. Now the attention shifts to the WNBA. How the league responds. How future games are officiated. And whether this controversy eventually fades away or grows into something even bigger. One thing is certain. The basketball world will be watching. Every whistle. Every technical. Every game. Because the spotlight has never been brighter. And neither has the pressure. What do you think? Did Caitlin Clark go too far by naming the referee publicly? Or do you believe she had every right to question a technical foul she felt was unfair? And here's the biggest question of all. Has this controversy exposed a larger issue with WNBA officiating? Or is it simply part of the growing pains that come with the league receiving more attention than ever before? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear your perspective. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest WNBA analysis, breaking news, and deep dives. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.